Welcome to Jewelry Week 2022. I'm JB Jones.
And I'm Bella Naiman.
And we're excited to share our virtual program with you here. And we invite you to check out our website at NYCJewelryWeek.com to see everything else that we're doing. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
You're in store for a really great program today. It's called the Bicultural Reality, and it's hosted by Laritza Garcia and the Colectiva Tilde, moderated by Celina Zisman. This panel is about Spanish-speaking artists who use contemporary jewelry as their means of expression. And just a short plug for our Here We Are program, of which Laritza Garcia is part of. So we hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. Although the program is now live, we'll make sure all the panelists get your comments. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We are here with some phenomenal artists from Colectiva Tilde for our panel discussion, Bicultural Reality. My name is Celina Zisman. My pronouns are she, they. And my primary language is English, but I am fluent in Spanglish as well. I'd love for the artists here to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their work before we jump into these questions.
Hi, Celina. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Laritza Garcia, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am in Austin, Texas. I'm an educator at Texas State University, and I'm also a jeweler, and I am really excited to share this time and space with fellow Latin and Latinx artists, one of whom I met through working together at Texas State, Alejandra Salinas, and we're both in Texas. I'm just so thrilled to have this opportunity to share our perspectives and share a little bit about our work. My work specifically pays a lot of homage to papel picado, which is a traditional craft within Mexican culture. And aside from the papel picado technique, I really try to infuse as much color into my work as a form of introducing levity into the conversation and to people's perspectives. Mexican culture has a lot to do with picardia and kind of having a positive outlook to some challenging difficulties. And I think that that's what the work that I create is trying to address. And we have Alejandra next.
Hi, I'm Alejandra Salinas. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am currently in San Antonio, Texas. I met Laritza while I was going to school in Texas State. I met all of the fellow Tildeadas in either SNAG or through artist residencies and classes. My work deals a lot with things that happen in Mexico with my culture, and I work a lot in metal and enamel, and I currently am moving towards exploring different materials and adding that to enamel as well.
Wonderful. Next we have Sandra.
Oh, hi. My name is Sandra Salaices. I am a Mexican contemporary jeweler, but I was trained in El Paso, Texas. My work, it's inspired by liking in the Chihuahuan desert. I use mesh and enamel to fabricate my work. It has to do a lot with oneness and interconnectedness. My most recent work is made with rammed earth and reclaimed steel, and it deals more with the material that I use and how it impacts, how our practice impacts I'm sorry, I'm super nervous.
Okay.
You're fine, you're fine.
How our practice has an impact in the environment.
Gracias, Sandra.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Dame. I born in El Paso, Texas, but I was raised in Ciudad Juarez, and my life is about like going back and forward all the time. I also do ceramic, so I'm a ceramic and jewelry teacher right now. A lot of my work talks about the place where I am in the moment. So right now, a lot of the work that you're seeing right now, it's work that I made about this area, which is like a really, it has a lot of destruction and also like reconstruction. And I talk a lot about how things were used to be and how now I am right now. Like, for example, the last things that I was doing is like the bed with the drops and the house with the drops, talking about my house and the places where I used to cry. So I think a lot of my work, it's kind of nostalgic and yep, and referring to the place where I am.
That is beautiful. Thank you guys all for sharing so much amazing background on the work. I wanted to note that a lot of us are in Texas. I am myself in Austin, Texas. I was so excited to jump into the artist previews that I neglected to do an introduction for myself. I go by the craft advocate. I work one-on-one with artists and creatives, helping them kind of craft professional practices for their practice. And I also serve on my city arts commission. So really enjoy being so hands-on. I'm also a SNAG member, and it's great to hear sort of the origins of how you guys came together. If I wanted to mention that we have one more member of the Colectiva that is not currently with us, Maru Lopez. She is in San Diego by way of Puerto Rico, and ideally will be joining us a little bit later. But can you guys speak to the origins of how you guys came together as a group? Where did y'all meet? And what was the impetus of establishing the group?
I met Maru while I was at Haystack. I got invited to be at a conference and I got a scholarship to go to a class there with Carrie Ann Quick. And so we both took a class with Carrie Ann Quick at Haystack. And then I had to stay over the weekend to attend the conference. And she was staying and attending a little pop-up at a gallery. And she was like, oh, why don't you come hang out with me? And so we became really good friends. After that, I went to Chicago to the SNAG conference, and that's where I met Cassandra. And we met like briefly, but we hit it off, and we just continued to stay in contact. And just how life is, I moved to San Antonio for the artist to be the artist in residence at the Southwest School of Art, which is now part of UTSA. And Sandra had been a previous artist in residence there. And Sandra knew Cassandra because they went to school together. And so all of those little connections was what was the what started Tilde.
Phenomenal.
And it happened right when the pandemic, like when everything was closed, and so that kind of also really pushed us to meet online, and we would critique our work together, would push each other to make work through the pandemic. So it just kind of was at the right moment for I think for everyone.
Yeah, so
Seems
I
like
guess
it was a really organic.
oh yeah, that was one of the intentions on forming the collective, like push ourselves to make more work and to talk about it and critique it.
That's
Did
really
you start
wonderful.
off with yeah, go for it, Lottie.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think that's just really wonderful because I think that a lot of us have spoken how once you leave school, it's hard to find that community. And it's great to go to places like Aramon or Haystack or all these kind of, or even locally places like Be Golden and here in town. But that all that requires a lot of financial support, whether it's for travel, taking off from work. It really is just a difficult scenario if you really are just trying to find a group of people who are willing to support like your creative journey.
No,
absolutely.
It really helped us get like a support system, especially because we had we all went to schools that were English speaking. I think that Sandra and Cassandra going to UTEP, they were in a more Spanish. They were surrounded and still in the Spanish language, and I bet a lot of the students probably spoke Spanish. I went to, I graduated with my BFA from the State University of New York at New Paltz. And so I was probably one of the only students who spoke Spanish. And Maru attended Alquimia. And so she was also one of the only ones that spoke Spanish in her group. So it was kind of like that also really connected us, that language barrier that, like, even when I teach classes and I teach them bilingually, sometimes I have a hard time like figuring out how do I say, soldering in Spanish. And so all of those things kind of connected us as well. And being able to speak about metalsmithing things in Spanish was really also helpful.
Yeah, how to express our ideas, because even though there were like a Spanish, like a lot of the students speak Spanish, professors didn't. So that was really frustrated for me, because I thought that I was smarter in Spanish and like I can like develop these ideas better or explain it better. Or sometimes when I translate or try to express it in English, it didn't quite say what I wanted to say. So this group totally helped us to like be more like fluent, and like, I don't know, it helped to creativity also, and like to having someone to critique and someone that speak the same language, like the jewelry language, was awesome.
And there's things that do get lost in translation, cultural, just things that, like sayings and things. Like in my work, I play a lot with words and meaning, and a lot of things, if you're not a Spanish speaker, it's just going to go over your head. And so for me, it was helpful that they understood it and knew where I was coming from and were able to critique it from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so, like I said, in my work, this idea picardía or doble sentido, things that have double meanings. There's so many words in Spanish-speaking language where that's the case, where we just assume that people have that cultural background. So when there isn't that understanding in how do we find our ideas out in the world for other peoples to catch, it's almost like, am I really having the right idea? And kind of questioning yourself if this is the way that you're supposed to be expressing. And a lot of it is just communication barriers, that we don't have a common ground or common language to come from. But I don't know, I guess we do. We just don't have a lot of that representation in the classrooms, right? Like I think we're here are all also artists and educators, and we're bringing that perspective. I know I've had just like, we really consider it an enormous privilege to be able to help Spanish speaking students translate their thesis, because like we're talking about, so much of it just gets lost in translation. Like the syntax could be there, but the emotion is missing, because somewhere in that, like the writing and having to express it differently, it doesn't work out. And it's almost like you need to be able to read it for context and then really even just work through the language. But there's just not that big of a support within the field yet of people who are engaging in that literary context of it too.
Seems like having this group is essential for maintaining authenticity and finding validity in the work, and that you're doing, kind of staying true and not compromising in what you're doing and how you're presenting it. And just to be able to think through things collectively as a unit, it feels like just an essential part of y'all's practice now, individually and as a collective.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a quick question. I know that Ale, you're teaching at Southwest School of Design,
yes,
right?
I teach community classes at Southwest/UTSA at their downtown campus. I teach there 4 times a week, and I do the kind of like the foundation, beginning, like introduction, the intermediate and advanced classes, as well as enameling.
Oh, great. And Cassandra, where are you teaching?
I'm teaching in my own studio at my home.
Oh,
I
great.
do, for 5 years now. And then I also teach ceramics in my studios. I have a studio in El Paso, and I have one in Juarez. So that's where I teach.
Oh, that's fabulous. What are your age group of people that you're working with?
Most of them are like from 23 to, I don't know, like 40. That's the range of ages.
That's awesome.
Yeah, mine really varies. Everything from like 18 to like 80. There's people who have been taking like classes longer than I've been alive there. It's a school that has a lot of a really big community, which is why I kind of decided to like lay roots here, because it has a really good metalsmithing community.
Yeah.
And Maru, where does she teach? Which school?
Maru teaches at, I want to say it's part of a museum as well. I'm not quite sure on what the name of it is, but she is at the museum, and I want to say it has to do with depending on what the programming is for that museum or for the exhibitions that are going on. She also comes up with programming for it and teaches there.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Sandra, do you teach, or do you hold on a studio practice?
I have a full-time studio practice, and I'm gonna be teaching a workshop at Aramont in 2 weeks or 1 week. I think by the time this goes out, I'll be there teaching.
Fantastic.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
And since we're talking about sort of different museums, we've kind of touched on that a little bit. Oftentimes, our artwork is more emblematic of artwork of a specific culture kind of gets relegated to cultural spaces. What has been your individual experiences in finding exhibition spaces, or what are the benefits or the obstacles that you've encountered as you navigate opportunities to show your work?
I think so far, everywhere that we've held an exhibition as a group has been from somebody that shares our cultural background. It's been mostly Latinx gallery owners. We also were at and Cassandra can speak more about this, but we were also at the University of Ciudad Juarez, and where Cassandra and Sandra also got to do they got to teach there a workshop for, I want to say it was the weekend, right, guys?
Yeah, it was a 1-day workshop right at the closing of the exhibition. Yeah, so we had the exhibition Raíces first in San Antonio at Equinox, and then we moved it to the University of Juarez, and then it was in El Paso at Flor de Barro Gallery.
But what they have in common is that all of them are, I mean, one is in Mexico, the other one, it's Equinox, the owner, he's a Mexican also. And in Flor de Barro, the owners also are from Chihuahua. So, so far in our careers, well, I can talk about my career. It's kind of like starting. So I haven't really had like problems so far, but maybe it's because we have been in these places where it's like, I don't know, it hasn't been a problem, or and they are interested into like us talking about our a way of seeing or expressing our cultures.
And I guess it's just that it's easily understood that, you know, there isn't this kind of like, we don't have to explain what we're talking about, because that's already, their perspective is shared by ours. So the support just kind of just comes easily from them.
I do got to say that big thank you to NYC Jewelry Week, because we are here as an invited panel, and I think that the voice was needed, and I think that the representation is also needed, and I do think that more larger organizations and a national organization level is starting to be more proactive when it comes to providing spaces that really are striving to be more equitable. And I think that that's something that's and part of it, I think, is a result of just the times that we live in. We have had so much social change when it comes to representation for people of color, for people of underrepresented backgrounds, and just this idea that we really just need to build a new world or a new working system. I do feel like a lot of that tends to come from, I'm not going to say like the younger generation, but like we're kind of in there. If you consider myself to be in that young group, but really I feel like it's the people that are coming like right behind us, like just a few years, that really have such amazing drive. And I think about people like Sulobi, who also is a Texas State alum, who's really trying to think about like, how do we create more programming? How do we create more spaces? And a lot of it is kind of feel like in a lot of senses, it's grassroots organization. It's like grassroots work that is making these spaces for more visibility for artists. I definitely would like to see more at a national level, kind of embracing artists of color. But I also find that there's a line that I'm not sure how to negotiate it there between being only called out because of your cultural background, as opposed to supporting the initiatives that really support artists that come from different cultural backgrounds. And I think that's where the line can be a little bit tricky about intentions and kind of putting things together that maybe it's not supported within the system, but it's supported in a sense of visibility. And I think that those two things are something that probably everybody here is trying to work through in their lives, and trying to support systems that actually like invest in programs and really kind of materialize in other ways outside of just like name visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I think that it comes back to education. And I mean, I know that as an educator, I'm always kind of asking, when are we doing classes that are in Spanish? When are we doing classes that are maybe bilingual? Like, how are we giving Latinx access to craft, to the arts, so that it's what we're doing makes it easier for the next artist that comes in to show their work and to make work, which is, I think it's important for Latinx to have the time to also make work and to tell the students that they're learning for sure.
I don't know, Celina, if I'm too off track, but let me know. I think that this is maybe a little bit on base of like, for those of us that are educators and for anybody who's coming into this business or to this contemporary jewelry world, it's like, well, I know of being first generation, the first thing my parents asked is like, what's the job? Like, what are you going to be doing when you leave? I mean, we come from families that worked really hard to make a living in the States. So to choose a career as an artist is really challenging sometimes. And I think that that's something that I hear from a lot of myself. I'll put myself in that category of kind of having to go against what the family considers to be an established profession. And I think that that's something, if we have a better passage of saying this is the types of institutions and types of things that are supporting you, then I think it's easier to embark in this lifelong journey that it's to be an artist. Do you guys have similar experiences with your family?
I mean, definitely, and especially coming from a contemporary jeweler point of view, where it's also always like, well, how come it's not covered in diamonds? Like you have to explain it to them, like the difference between contemporary jewelry versus an engagement ring, or they just think that you're gonna do repairs for them all day long, and you're just like, no, that's not what I do.
And that's probably something that happens to a lot of people, maybe independent of culture and contemporary jewelry, but there's also like another level of the cultural understanding of contemporary jewelry, especially coming from like traditional craft backgrounds where people have been working in silver and goldsmithing and doing these traditional beautiful pieces. Yeah.
Especially because it's true. When you tell them jewelry, they think of silver and from Pasco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or coppersmithing. They think
Mm-hmm.
of the coppersmithing vessels that we're known for. So it's
Yeah.
definitely the tradition of craft is there, and so that's the expectation that they think that you're going to produce.
Yeah.
That's what they think you're going to come home with, and it's then you show your concept, and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's all connected, but it's definitely a departure. And I think for most artists, that's probably a shared experience where it's like, how are you going to support yourself? And it comes from love and concern, but it's definitely, it feels like a risk, I think, for everybody.
Well, I think it coming back to what Laritza's saying, you know, after like all of these sacrifices that your family makes for you to have this better life, that, you know, instead of saying, oh, I'm gonna go to med school or I'm gonna be a lawyer, you're like, I'm gonna be an artist. They're just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
And I see it in my classes that hopefully people who, because there are people who just culturally, you know, family acceptance plays a big role in your decisions, and it comes with, you know, it's a heavy burden sometimes, and people just follow through with what they're expected to do. And I teach to like doctors and lawyers who are like, you know, this is what I enjoy doing, but this is what my family kind of like expected me to do, right? So I think that I think it has the possibility to enrich us in life after work, but also help out the craft with people who understand why your earrings are $300 and not $25.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like this connects back to this idea of the collective and building a community of support and like-minded thinkers and makers. Right now you have 4 members. Are there plans to expand? Is this, you know, is the idea to keep it intimate or to potentially grow to be something larger than it is now?
Well, we're very intimate at the moment. We become like a really close-knit group. We do sometimes find it hard to find time to have our meetings, and I think adding another member is like something we would consider if someone approached us and maybe was willing to bring something to the group, but we are not like openly looking
like,
for.
Look, we're not like accepting applications, but if it's
Yeah.
the right fit, we're definitely open to like meeting a new member and trying it out for sure.
But
The
for
more the
sure,
merrier.
sorry, for sure, we're trying to do or be a platform for sure. I mean, to be doing exhibitions, doing this, ¿cómo se llama?
El directorio.
El directorio. The
Este,
directory.
The directory, yeah.
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 So to
Say
put all the
it in
names.
Spanish.
I know.
Yeah, Spanish también.
Spanish
Yeah.
is welcome in this. This is a safe space.
Y es que también tal vez hay personas
Acá
que van a estar viendo de que no van a hablar
Claro.
inglés, y yo creo que también es importante decir, sabes que si tienes alguna pregunta y no hablas inglés, háblanos a nosotras, porque nosotros te podemos responder.
Exacto.
Entonces, yo creo que esto también es parte de lo importante de que, pues, si vamos a abrir las puertas de comunidad, en realidad va a ser un poco más, a lo mejor va a ser como que mucha gente va a querer compartir, pero y yo creo que está muy bien.
Sí. So
Sí.
esa es la idea, to have like a list of all the artists that we know, and that's really nice that we are like in different places.
Uh-huh.
So Alejandra brings different people, I bring different people, everyone brings different people, and so we added to this list. So if someone is starting in school right now and starting like doing jewelry and has no idea, and she wants or whatever wants to know more people, they get into that, and like we can help and be that platform also, doing shows, doing this directory, doing different things. We are totally planning to do that. Just in terms of organization, like to I think 4 people is good right now to keep things organized and working, but yes, we want to be a panel or like a platform.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was one of my other questions is like, what other projects do you guys have in the works? What are the long-term goals of the collective? Because I can totally see the benefit of having an intimate group that's closed and you guys are a resource for one another, but you each represent such a beautiful intersectionality, being a woman of color, being Spanish speaking, being in craft and educators, that you immediately present as a wonderful resource for people that are emerging in this space or are trying to navigate their identity within this space. And so how do you, if it's part of your mission, how do you extend yourselves as a resource to people that are seeing you and are excited about what you're doing?
And that's kind of like on the list of plans, right? We almost in the beginning of the year, once it gets started, we're like, okay, what are we doing this year? And we always kind of dream really big, but as long as we tackle a couple of the things that are on the list, we're happy. But it is on the list to be a resource for people to know more Latinx metalsmiths. Because even when we were going to school and we were doing research, it was hard for us to find somebody that we could see ourselves in their work. And so, and there are people out there, but we just don't know like what their work is about or where they're located or what they're currently doing. And so that's one of the big goals, is to have the Directorio Tilde and have it be accessible for everyone to meet other Latinx metalsmiths and see more jewelry by Latinx makers.
Yeah. I honestly think that is such an amazing thing that y'all are doing. Like, that's such a foundational step to so many other things and establishing this community. But I also hope, through this, like this advocate moment that we have right now, that people do sign up that want to contribute to this directory. But also I think that like that institutional support of our parent organizations, like Society of North American Goldsmiths and Art Jewelry Forum, so that they are also thinking about how can we engage this demographic and how can we support the building of a directory, whether it's through promotion or it's actual money, which I know that everybody has a hard time with their finances, but I think that there's other ways for, again, within our community, like New York Jewelry Week is doing right now, to help spread this commitment that you all are laying down. And I think that that's really the important part of this, is that I don't know, I won't say unfortunately, but again, I think we are at the beginning of a lot of connection building and community building that is different than what it looked like for those who are the gatekeepers before us. And I think that's where we're starting to see that shift. But again, it's being able to affiliate with those gatekeepers to find that support, I think is also really important, because so it's building that community and that linkage between the people who are doing it on the ground and the people who are already sitting in the offices or in the Zoom boardrooms, making it happen.
It kind of leads me in this direction. We're proud of our culture. A lot of the work that we're seeing is emblematic of your identity and your backgrounds. Do you ever find conflict in being identified as a Latinx or Latina artist exclusively? Like, we have a whole, group of Latina artists that aren't necessarily making work that relates to their culture, but yet are kind of put into this friendly box of, oh, this is a Latin show, you're going to be presented here, this is where you belong. What are your guys' personal feelings about being kind of labeled artist of color instead of just a broad term as an artist?
Okay, so yesterday we had a small meeting with Maru to discuss these questions, and then she gave a really nice comment that I'm gonna read. As I create my work, I do not think about being Latina or Puerto Rican. For me, it's important to highlight it because there is very little representation. It's important to say it, to be a voice and talk of it. And I think this comment we all relate to it. Like I'm not making it thinking I am Latina, but then it has to. Well, not necessarily that it has to, but it's important to say it.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think, and I recently read, it was from, and I'm just so thankful for a lot of the opportunities that have come in my direction. And I do think it's very important to say it and represent it and to say, you know, I am Spanish speaking and first generation, because other people will find themselves in that. I think one of my favorite things that I read is like Laritza Garcia, artist of color, working in color. And I thought, oh, that's kind of like that. But I think that, again, thinking about this idea of like representation is so very crucial, but I think it's also really important to say, and maybe this is where I'm at in my practice, I do think about things like papel picado and color and the inspiration when I'm making my work as a part of who I am as a person. Those are things that have informed me as human. But I also think that it's really valid to just say, even if your work doesn't reference your culture directly, just the fact that you are a person of color making that work is valuable. Like, it doesn't have to be thematically connected or technically connected. I think just the value in that we're people creating this work that happens to give a voice that's specific to that culture is important. But you could be making work about anything. I think the value is that we're supporting the individual and in their practice. And I think that that's where it's, again, we're in a place where we are really trying to give a lot of credit and support each other, but it's also important to say, just you being you and you being a human is valuable. And I think that that's where we have to hold both of those in the same hands. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that is the extent of my questions, you guys. Is there anything else you would like to share before we wrap?
Well, soon we're gonna be in the upcoming issue for Snag. We finished writing a article for them, and the article and Sandra kind of knows all of the details of it. But I believe it is the first, right, Sandra, in Spanish?
Yeah, it is the first translated article to Spanish in Snag magazine, so it's really exciting. Yeah,
we're very excited for that. I'm very thankful for that opportunity from Snag as well. And then next year, we're all starting again to kind of like get together and start making and to do our critique meetings, because we're going to be making new pieces for the new alliteration of La Frontera, which is happening next year. So we're working on new pieces for that as well.
Phenomenal. Well, I'm so excited to see what more is in store for you guys. We'll be looking for that article from Snag. Please share with everybody. I'm sure it'll be out on the Instagram. For those at home, they are at Colectiva Tilde. Please, I encourage everybody out there to check out the individual artist pages and support by following and sharing. Was so excited to be introduced to you guys, and I'm so grateful to Lari to be included in this opportunity. And just thank you so much for the privilege of sharing your company.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all so much, and make sure you become part of Colectiva Tilde or the directory if you're out there, and feel free to reach out to any of us. I think the purpose for all of us to just be in this Zoom world is that we really want to make sure to say, aquí estamos, we're here. Come knock on our doors. I think that that's what it's all about.
Could not agree more. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for everybody out in virtual land for watching. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.